like to call this meeting to order. Welcome to the City of Indian Rocks Beach regular City Commission meeting. This is Tuesday, August 13th, 2024. Could you stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please stand for a few moments of silence. Thank you. Lauren, would you do the roll call, please?
Commissioner Bigelow?
Present.
Commissioner Bond?
Here.
Vice Mayor Commissioner Wilson?
Present.
Commissioner White? Here. Mayor Commissioner Hausberg?
Here. For our presentations tonight, I'd like the report of the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office. Please come forward.
Good evening, everyone. How are you? My name is Sergeant John Shields with Patrol Operations at Pinellas County Sheriff's Office. I have the stats for your city in the month of July. For the month of July, we have a total of 8, which was down from 6 last month, but a total of 8 property and person crimes during that month. We have 11 arrests within the city. They are in different various different felonies and misdemeanors that are listed on your documentation. In the city, for the month of July, we have 947 events within the city. Responding deputies, we had 1,302. There were 3 crashes within the city for the month of July, and they are at Gulf Boulevard and 27th Avenue. Another one at 2405 Gulf Boulevard, and another one at 401 2nd Street. Within that time frame also, there were 271 citations and warnings written within the city, 70 of them being actual written citations. So that's the stats for the month. Does anyone have any questions?
I kind of do. I
Yes, ma'am.
do have a question. So it was the month of July, so during July 4th, do you know how many citations were given out or how many incidences there were on 4th of July on the
Not on
beach?
that particular day. It's not broken down like that per
Okay.
day. The total is for the whole month.
Great.
But I can try to get that information.
That would be nice.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Does anyone else have any other questions? Thank you. Next, I'd like the report of the Pinellas Suncoast Fire and Rescue District.
Good evening, Mayor,
Hey,
Commissioners,
guys.
City Manager, and Community. Jeffrey Davidson, Fire Chief, here to give you the monthly report for July in Indian Rocks Beach. There were 78 calls for emergency services into Indian Rocks Beach during the month of July. 63 medical calls, including cardiac arrest, trauma alerts, motor vehicle crashes, 3 water rescues and near drowning, and other medical emergencies. There were 15 calls fire-related. They include fire alarms, reported structure fire from a lightning strike. Turned out to just be a palm tree outside, luckily. An outside fire and 3 elevator rescues. During Tropical Storm Debbie, which was not in July, but we responded to 33 emergency medical calls, including fire alarms, structure fires, a structural collapse, electrical hazards, and water rescues. So we were very busy during those few days. We were in contact with the city manager here to make sure the needs of the residents were taken care of. Last Thursday, we had our housing ceremony for our newest fire engine. I want to thank those who came out, and Commissioner White was there, and other members of the community. And it's not often that we get to do that. Fire trucks generally last 10 to 12 years in service, and then they go to reserve status. So it's nice that we can bring the community there for those types of things. And we're getting ready to finalize all the details for it'll be our 3rd annual September 11th walk that we do, commemorative walk. And so as soon as we get all those details, I'll send them over to Lauren for distribution and posting. We hope that anybody can come out, participate. You could walk we do a 3.43 mile walk We're representing 343 firefighters that perished that day. So if you can come out and walk with us or just wave at us, or whatever you can do. And then I wanted to give you, as a little longer than I normally talk, but it's really important here because I need some help from the community. So we're finalizing the purchase of the land on the northern end of Indian Rocks Beach, okay? And then we're going to begin design and construction. The reason that we purchased that property and are building a fire station there is there have been, it was identified in 2009, long before I was here, that there are response time issues in the northern end of Indian Rocks Beach into Bel Air Beach due to the distance between our fire station in Indian Rocks Beach and the next closest station, which is in Clearwater. It's almost 6 miles, 5.8 miles, and that's not acceptable for the response times. So we've been working on it since I got here. We purchased the property, going to finalize everything, get into design and construction, and my plan was, instead of waiting 2 years for the fire station to be done before we can put an advanced life support unit on that property, is to put a unit on that property into temporary housing on April 1st of this upcoming year. So we met multiple times with the county, collaborative effort that we've been working on, and in our meeting on August 6th, the County Director of Emergency Safety Services said that our proposal, see, every homeowner pays an EMS village tax, right? And that's how the EMS funds are paid for. That's how the ambulance providers are paid for. That's how the paramedics, one paramedic per fire truck are paid for from that EMS fund, okay? So we met on August 6th, and we had been talking for quite some time, laid out our plan, and we want to put a unit there on April 1st to get rid of that problem as soon as possible, the response time problem. And we were told that he was not going to be recommending that to his Board of County Commissioners. And that funding does come from the EMS fund. It's an EMS tax that's charged to every homeowner. And the increase that we need in our funding from April 1st, 25 until September 30th of 25, 6 months of that fiscal year, is approximately $360,000 cost to the EMS fund, okay? Today, the EMS fund has $67 million in reserves, and their budget forecast that they put on their website, you can see it yourself, they're gonna have $103 million in reserves. We're asking for $360,000 to get rid of a response time problem. I know if you live in this area, live in the Fingers, called 911 anytime recently, it was 7 minutes response time at 4 o'clock in the morning. That's without traffic, right? That's not acceptable. It is acceptable under the standards of the county, 7 minutes and 30 seconds, 90% of the time. However, we all know that time is brain, time is heart muscle. We try to get those response times under, but we're not even meeting the county standards, having the fire stations so far apart. Had that Indian Rocks Beach station been on another call, we would have gotten the next closest unit, so response times could have been even further delayed. The residents of our district last year, in fiscal year 24, the residents of our district, the entire district, paid almost $4.8 million into the EMS fund. Okay? My budget received back from the county $2.1 million to provide those services, less than 40% return. And I understand that that's how things work sometimes, where there are some donor states, but we're not getting the funding that we need to put that unit here on April 1st. Those response time problems were identified by the county in 2009. I told you it's due to the distance between the stations. We submitted annually what our growth plan is, and everything's been a collaborative effort. I don't want to see the residents have to wait until that fire station is done and the firefighters are living in it, which is going to be 2 years before we put another advanced life support unit with paramedics and advanced life support equipment into the northern end of Indian Rocks Beach. So if you can voice your opinions, reach out to people that need to be reached out to, and voice your opinions on it, I'd be really gratefully much appreciated. I am trying to set up a few more meetings between now and the final budget for the county in September. But any help that we can get from the community and from the commissioners would be a big help. Do you have any questions for me?
Can you get to us specifically who would be the best to reach out to?
Yes, I can. And if you'd like, if anybody would like, I'll leave my business cards in the back, has my email address. So if you have any questions for me, you can email me. I'll get you that information. And Commissioner West, I'll get you that information as well.
Does anybody have any questions?
I have a quick question. So 300, what'd you say, 380?
It's about $360,000.
And that then pays for the temporary housing?
No, we're paying for that. We're paying for, we bought the land, taxpayer dollars. We're building the fire station, taxpayer dollars. Right? An email was sent to make sure to the city manager to know that that's being paid by taxpayer dollars. The personnel, okay, the way it works now is on our fire trucks, we have 3 people, right? 3 firefighter paramedics or firefighter EMTs. The county pays for one of those, one person. That's called one seat of funding. And that's actually the taxpayers pay that, right? You pay an EMS mill. You'll look on your tax bill last year, .8875. Our residents in our district paid $4.8 million. And then they distribute that money based on their needs, and they have some analysis that they do. But this has been a long-term response time problem. And so for me to put, what I would do in the temporary housing is until the fire engine is put there, we have a rescue truck being delivered October, November. It's a little bit of a delay. The county is paying us back for that. It was $350,000. Okay, so I need the personnel to go on that truck. Right? 2
So
people a day.
$360,000 is for personnel?
It's for
And
personnel.
that's for 6 months? Or is-
That's for half the year, yes, sir.
And so what happens after that half year?
After that half year, then it would continue into the next fiscal year.
Would you
right?
need to ask again then?
Yes, but it's normal standard, once that fire station is built, the standard is that we would get 1 additional seat of funding. So a year and a half, 2 years from now, we are gonna get 1 additional seat of funding when the fire station is operational.
But you've got about 1.5 million in costs between now and then.
If I want to staff that in April, right, I'm gonna have to hire 6 personnel, which in their first year costs about $600,000.
I'm not quibbling about the numbers, I'm just trying to.
So we need the
So
additional
it's really
funding
not
from
even
the town.
360, you kind of need 1.5 million over
It
the
is-
next 2 years.
It's, right, for a full year, right now, the cost for a full year is about $720,000. For me to put 1 paramedic a day, right, for the 3 shifts. So technically 3 paramedics. 1 seat covers 3 people, right? So our equivalent is about $720,000 for the year. So 6 months, about $360,000, right?
Right, yeah, I just want
Yeah.
to make sure I knew what we were asking for.
That's gonna be in the county budget. That's gonna be once the fire station is operational. It's gonna be 1 additional seat of funding, which the cost will come down. There's a reason for that, but let's say it's $700,000. That's gonna be in the county budget as long as that fire station's in service. All I'm asking is that we don't wait until the fire station's in service, that you give me the funding to help me hire people so that I can I'll put the rescue truck there now in temporary housing while the station's being built, and I can have those people there on April 1st. But I can't do it without additional funding from the county.
Right.
I think that's super important.
I agree, so, you know, I have a difference of opinion of some of the people that manage the money, but, you know, the way I look at it is our residents pay a lot of money. And if we receive back, it was less than 40%, it was 39.7%. Next year it's gonna be 37.32%, right? That we pay, our residents in the district pay. And understand if we were given all the resources that we needed to provide all the services, given the county response time criteria, but we're not meeting that in certain areas. And this addresses that and will fix the problem. You know, if you call 911, let's say, and you can't breathe, right? 7 minutes, would you like me there in 7 minutes, or would you like me there in 2 minutes, right? I'm venture to say you want me there in 2 minutes, right? And that's not always possible, right? But that's what we aim for. So that's my goal, to increase the service for Indian Rocks Beach and into Bel Air Beach as well, because that's part of our district. And everything was going smoothly, but it seems like this is a hiccup, and we need some help in getting that message across that our residents deserve to not have to wait another 1.5 years before we can put paramedics closer to this area.
Remind me how much money they have in reserves.
So you can go on, they have it posted, you Google the proposed fiscal year 25 budget, but it's, what's it? Oh, right here. Currently, it's 67.3 million in reserves, but the fiscal year 25 budget has that increasing to 103 million. So $360,000 out of 103 million is less than 3%. It's not even 3%. I mean, take that back. It's less than 0.3%, right? Not even half of 1% of the reserves. And it's not for me to say how they spend the reserves, but the taxpayers pay that money. And if you have a service that's coming anyway, why would you wait 1.5 years? What is $360,000 out of 103 million? Less than half of 1%, it's 0.3%. So that's my pitch to you today.
So did your current staff get the raise they were looking for? I think that was a part of your campaign, what, 1.5 years ago, when you were asking for the mill rate increase, was you needed it to pay, your staff hadn't had a raise in like 7 years?
Oh,
Did they ever get the raise they were looking for?
Yes and no. So that you're speaking of the ad valorem tax that we proposed,
Yeah.
because we didn't have the before I got here, we didn't have the proper funding mechanism in place. We were the only agency that didn't have an ad valorem tax. So we went to the voters because we have 50-year-old fire stations, we have apparatus that need to be replaced, and the millage that we proposed was the smallest millage rate, 0.67, that cannot be increased without going back to the voters. And we laid out a 20-year plan on how all this money was going to be spent. The majority of that was supposed to be for capital. Through that, there's been some exchanges over the last few years with the firefighters on some time where they've received a 12% increase in the last 2 years. This last negotiations, we ended up coming to a standstill, and we need to go back and negotiate. So, you know, I had a proposal that was going to fix the long-term problem. The union had a difference of an opinion. We ended up in impasse, and it was misstated, something that was put out, but our board didn't find in favor of us or them. They wanted us to get back to the drawing board and work together. So that's what we're doing as far as the wages go for the firefighters.
Okay.
But that ad valorem, that was spent, well, that was pitched for our capital items. Like, we can't say, okay, we have this money, we're not going to build a fire station so we can pay our firefighters more. That's not what that money was for, right? If that makes sense.
Yeah, I just don't remember it was pitched to me that way. It was pitched to me for all things.
It was for all things, but
Okay.
we have to make sure that we have the infrastructure in place, and that we have the fire trucks and the air packs, and, you know, we just took delivery of a fire truck that we had been building for 2 years. Now it's about a 4-year lead time, and we paid almost $800,000 for the fire truck. Without equipment, that same truck now is $1 million, right? We got to replace our ladder truck. Was supposed to be replaced in 2030, but there's a 4-year lag in ordering, and those trucks went from, we had projected at 1.6 million to now, as of today, that same truck's almost $2 million, right? So we have to be very careful with our spending. Right?
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you for your time, and I'm sorry if I spoke a lot here. I won't be back until next month, I promise. Thank you.
All right, now I'd like to open up the floor for public comment. Every speaker may speak for 3 minutes. Any member of the audience may come forward, give their name and address, and state in any comment or concern that they may have. regarding any matter over which the city commission has control, excluding the agenda items. All statements made to the city commission shall be made to the city commission as a whole, not directed to any individual city commission member, and no personal, impertinent, or slanderous remarks shall be permitted. No speaker shall be interrupted, and no debate shall occur between the speaker and the city commission. Who'd like to come up and make a statement? Any comments?
I wasn't first.
Hi, Beth.
Hi. Beth McMullen, 481 Harbor Drive South.
Tom McMullen, 41 Harbor Drive South. I'm going to give my 3 minutes to Beth.
Hi. The house across the street from us has been a short-term rental since 2021, renting daily for up to $2,000 a night. It underwent extensive renovations at the time. This house went up for sale this past April. The listing stated strong rental income at over $346,000 in 2023 and over $220,000 for 2024. Already fully compliant with the new Indian Rocks Beach short-term rental policies and procedures instituted last year. So despite being fully compliant with the city ordinance, this house was marketed as being extremely profitable. Good to know. 6 days later, it sold to the current owner for $3,400,000, and they closed on that property this past June 3rd, over a year since the signing of IRB's short-term rental ordinance. Almost immediately, demolition dump trailers arrived and workers began nonstop work on this already fully renovated house. No permits were displayed, no permits were found on public record. The interior work only halted when guests checked in with their suitcases. This was the first 3 weeks of the new ownership. This is a second generation short-term rental, meaning this house does not fall under the 2-year grace period, granting occupancy capped at 12. Under the new ordinance, occupancy is capped at 10. Over the last nearly 2.5 months, we have written to the city 4 times asking for clarity and sharing relevant observations, specifically sharing in our emails significant daily work being undertaken, guests with suitcases checking in and out, no exterior wall placard and with a BTR and contact information, no visible permits, and no record of permits in public records. The city responded with a quote from the ordinance, leading us to believe there was a 30-day grace period. When we asked for clarification, we didn't receive any response. Our second email outlining the continued concern was also not responded to. Finally, the house has now been owned by the new investors for 55 days, way past the 30-day grace period. Once again, we wrote the city, including the commissioner, city manager, and code enforcement, very clearly. The email outlined the following observations and concern. Continued remodeling with no visible recorded permits. Guests checking in and out that past weekend. No wall placards. Exterior window replacement. And now online advertising by a well-known local management company showing occupancy at 18. The only response we received from the city was that there was 1 permit found, and that was for window replacements. None of the other valid observations were addressed. And in fact, the response to guests checking in was as follows. We've identified the property as a vacation rental from the previous owner. Our team will work with the new owners if they decide to apply for a vacation rental. We've sent the city 3 emails. Can you send me?
I'm sorry, I'm just trying to reset it for you.
We sent the city 3 emails telling them that under no uncertain terms that it has continued to be rented out ever since it was purchased. I had to send a 4th email once again explaining that they have never stopped renting it, that it was being advertised, and it was being advertised to accommodate 18 people. Finally, I was told they'd contact the owners and management company. That was 13 days ago. And as of today, it's still being advertised to accommodate 18 people. Not only in beachesusa.com, but Airbnb, VRBO, vacationrenter.com, Facebook, Instagram, and stays.com in Australia. And those are just the sites I quickly found. I outline all of this and point out several issues. Frustration on our part that there have been violations of the ordinance by a brand new owner, that the city was notified, but it has resulted in no action on behalf of the city. Does the city have in place some way of tracking short-term rental sales specifically to another owner investor intending to continue to run it as an STR to prevent the issues we have here, where it continues to entertain guests in violation of the ordinance? How's that being tracked? How is this property still being advertising with such an excessive number of allowed guests? 18 people in one house is an abuse of our neighborhoods. This house falls under the new ordinance that states no more than 10. The new owners can't say they weren't aware of this when they purchased the house because the ordinance was signed a year ago. It's not unreasonable to expect when residents email the city with relevant observations and valid concerns that their email will be read to completion and that they receive responses relevant to the concerns. That email won't be cherry-picked to not have to address certain questions. 18 people. Our zoning laws should protect us from having to tolerate such an abuse of our neighborhoods, period. And where that clearly has failed, for whatever unexplained reason it's failed, then we have this hard-fought ordinance. This ordinance is in place so that residents living around these businesses have some insulation for the issues that have been caused. We need to be able to rely on the ordinance to prevent this sort of thing, as well as we need to be able to rely on the city's response to enforcing it. You will set a precedence for this type of abuse of a neighborhood if this ordinance isn't enforced. If that is allowed, we'll be right back where we started when things were so out of control due to these short-term rentals. This ordinance, this signed document, is the city's agreement with the residents of IRB that there are guidelines these businesses must follow. The ordinance is worthless unless it's enforced by the city, and the city is obligated to enforce it. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth. Would anyone else like to come up and make a comment?
Don House, 2104 Beach Trail. So, my wife and I have been married about 52 years. And when we first got married, we got a little Sheltie that had papers and all that other stuff, nice dog. But since then, we've had nothing but strays and rescue dogs. If you've ever had a rescue dog, you'll know why they got rid of them. Well, we had a little golden retriever named Peanut. And so my daughter and I were playing a game of Scrabble. We don't play games, it's a war. So if you don't come, at least going to get 350, you know you're going to lose. So but we stopped in the middle and went to get, made a couple of drinks, and we came back, and Peanut, our rescued golden retriever, had swallowed about half the Scrabble towels. So I ran into the vet, and vet said, okay, I'll watch him, give me a call in a couple of hours. And so went home, called the vet back after a couple of hours, and said, so what's happened with Peanut with all the Scrabble towels? And he says, no word yet. That's supposed to be a joke. The reason I start with a joke is that y'all treat us that aren't a member of the A2K cult as a joke. You give us our 3 minutes and then sit down and shut up. I know that we can, if you belong to the cult, you can say anything you want, talk as long as you want. I mean, I've seen it happen before, but we do have something to add. 4 of y'all on the commission have contacted those of us that live on the beach and they said, let's talk about the issues that you have on the beach. Reminds me of that vet, no word yet, okay? And this is the problem. No word, no respect, no nothing. So as a person that has always been treated as a joke, I'm going to begin that. So let's just remember, I'll be appearing here the second Tuesday of every month. Remember to tip your waitresses and bartenders. Have a good night, IRB.
Thank you, Don.
Okay.
Does anyone else have a comment? Hi, John.
Sorry, they don't have a joke tonight. John Fansteel, 448 Harbor Drive South. I'm very happy that the majority of you don't have a home that's surrounded by transient lodgings. You don't daily see the destruction that these unsupervised hotels do to our community. So here's a recent recap of things going on in residential neighborhood by short-term rentals. A vacation rental used as a red light house, let's say. 4 prostitutes reported, and a stolen credit card from one of the Johns. And to be clear, it was one of the Johns, not John. So another vacation rental that brought in over 100 people trespassing all over neighbors' yards, creating disturbances, a lot of traffic. And vacationers that trespassed across a number of backyards, hid in, slept in overnight, and threw up in a residence building. A recently purchased home, as you've heard, advertising sleeps 18. That's more than a small motel. And the son of one of our neighbors who came from out of state, moved back, hoped to move back into Indian Rocks Beach. He visited the areas he used to play as a kid. And it is unfit for a family or for a child now, so he had to move over the bridge. Clearly, the existing ordinance isn't enough. Under past commissioners, the number of lodgings for transit flew up to now approaching 500, with another 800 suspected. There is an excellent graphic showing how this cancer has grown in our neighborhood, so I'll email that to you. It's shocking. The community that was IRB is still under a grave threat as residents are forced to leave and are replaced by unsupervised hotels. The HOA and the Action 2000 has had issues trying to get enough volunteers now. I hope you'll take bold actions to prevent IRB from becoming like Anna Maria. 800 transient lodgings. They outnumber the residents 4 to 1. Even the mayor doesn't have a neighbor now. Every candidate runs on the promise to keep the charm and quaintness of our neighborhood. Preventing our family neighborhoods from being turned into tourist hotel districts should be Commission's #1 priority, and should be the progress should be addressed every month. Frankly, who cares about anything else the Commission does if you allow your city neighborhoods to become a place that's no longer fit for families, seniors, and children to live? We want this Commission to take a leadership position, stop reacting, and join with other cities and take the fight to Tallahassee. We certainly hope you do. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, John. Hi, Linda.
Hi, here I'll put show and tell. Linda Newton, 438 Harbor Drive North. 20 years ago, I moved here. I moved into a single-family residence, and there were renters in our neighborhood, but they were 3 months. You would get the people from Detroit come down and avoid the cold, and they became friends just as well as your neighbors up and down the street. It was community. It was social. My friends had kids and grandkids just like me. And we would play and we would have fun and everybody would get together. That is disappearing. It's funny, just before I came here, I was running a little late because of the UPS man. He said, do you realize your area, if you look at First and all the way down the Harbor Drives and 27th, was the busiest section of Indian Rocks Beach. He said, you know, this last October, we didn't even need golf carts anymore. There's not people getting deliveries here. It's turning into short-term rental world. I have a question. They come and say, we need our rights. This is our rights. Well, back in 2011, the reason everything changed, and I didn't own then, well, I did own then, okay, but I was working 60 to 80 hours a week, so I didn't know what was happening here at the council to know all this was passing. It was brought to my attention by a representative in the state of Florida that this all came up because 2011 was hard to sell your home, and people were starting to lose their homes because they couldn't afford them anymore. So it got brought up to the state of Florida that they could increase, that they could do nightly, they could do weekly instead of just the 3 months. It brought so much opposition that they introduced the law. If you have laws in place in your city or your community or your homeowners association, they're grandfathered in. Well, our city changed and we got ungrandfathered to our 3 months. I didn't know that. However many people sat up there, signed a piece of paper and approved it, and off they went. 2021, 2022, 2023, it mushroomed. The value of homes went off the wall. People can't afford to come here anymore as a family to live. And it's not because the homes justify the price. There's a home that just sold on the corner of, what is it, Bay and 27th for $800,000, not on the water. Give me a break. So we've kind of destroyed who can live here, and it's being sold as businesses. People complain about our rules. We don't have half the rules that businesses have. I know because I was a business owner. And I have had a property that took over 2 years to remodel because of all the rules. They don't have the rules that businesses have. And we need to get tough. We need to justify that we are overwhelming our communities. Thank you. Take a look, guys. You've destroyed 10.
Thank you, Linda. Does anyone else have a comment?
Hello, Kelly Watt, 431 Harbor Drive South. So 2 doors down from us at 429 Harbor Drive South, there's a short-term rental. Ours is the home where one of the guests came over in the evening, broke into our boat, threw up all over our boat, stayed the night, said he was drunk, but had the presence of mind to bring his backpack. So we think he was hiding, but we don't really know. We pressed charges. He was found guilty, and so he was found guilty of felony trespass. That same property now continues to rent, and the last 2-3 weeks, they're having yoga and Zumba classes in the morning with microphones, instructors doing the microphones. So it's the same property, and my question is there some sort of tracking mechanism where the city is aware of police complaints or crimes committed that would alert you that that might be a potential problem property for the city to take additional action on? Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else have a comment this evening?
Hi, my name's Dave Goodman, 1006 First Street. The last time I spoke here, since then, we have 2 more additional short-term rentals behind us. There's one across the street, one right next to us, and 3 behind our house. They all have pools, they all have string lights, or I call them party lights. And when they have families with kids, the kids scream all day long in those pools for hours at a time. Then when it gets to be in the evening, the party lights come on, and we're up high. We're right at the end of the street where we can see all the homes behind our house. And we have 0 privacy. We can see them, but they can also see us. We don't use our back deck. And I mentioned the kids throughout the day, and in the evenings, it's the adults. And I know that there is an occupation limit. However, there's always a lot more people than that. There are parties, there are big get-togethers, and we see cars come and go, and it's just hard to tolerate. When we bought our house here back in 2008, when it was peaceful and quiet, we planned to retire here. And now that we're here permanently, now the whole neighborhood is completely different than it used to be. And we feel betrayed, like what happened? How was this allowed to be? It's a residential area. It's not a commercial district, not supposed to be. But we are surrounded by hotels. I feel like our house is on the 2nd floor of a hotel on the beach, and our balcony overlooks the swimming pools, because that's what it is. And there's always people doing something at one of those houses, and sometimes all in unison. It's a bit much to tolerate. And so we don't know what to do about it, except to hang in there for a while longer and see if some positive changes come out of all this. We hope it goes back to the way it was before, where renting meant staying here for some period of time, like living here, not staying for just a few days or a week or sometimes 2 weeks. We're so glad when we see just a couple, just 2 people, stay at a house for a week or so, because pretty much they keep to themselves. They're here to relax too. But when we see cars pull up and there's lots of people coming and going, and usually there's a car to start with at the beginning of the week. By the time it gets to the end of the week, there's more cars showing up. And then they have their family get-togethers or their parties, and then they leave. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to make a comment?
Hello, I'm Christine Bergman. I'm at 2207 Bay Boulevard. First, I want to thank you all for
Christine, could you speak louder into the so I can get you?
Yes. I wanted to thank you all for being here and all your work and efforts for our city. I wanted to speak just about the parking. I know you're going to be addressing that a little bit more later on. I've lived in Indian Rocks Beach for almost 25 years.
Yeah, the parking is an off-limits topic since it's going to be a part of our work session later in the meeting.
Isn't there more than one parking topic? I wasn't going to talk about the meters.
Oh, okay, sorry.
All right, you can proceed.
Thanks. I was going to say that after living on the beach for so long, and I actually lived in several other beaches down the way, one of the things I've always loved about Indian Rocks is that we had public access and an invitation for everybody to enjoy the beach. And as I've seen the street parking signs go up everywhere and saw some changes happening the last couple of years, I feel really disappointed that we've stopped being a welcoming beach where everyone can, be able to enjoy the beach. And in our neighborhood, if someone wants to visit, that's very limited. If you have a big car, people can't visit you in my neighborhood and have to park 3 or 4 blocks away. And it feels overkill, it feels undone, so my request is to continue to look at how extreme we've gotten with so many no parking signs and so many streets and so little exceptions. And I wonder, maybe you've already looked at having residential passes to kind of ease that up a little bit so at least people can visit. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Christine. Is there anyone else?
I may be using John's 3 minutes if I need more. Oh, it already started. I didn't even introduce myself. Come on, don't take my seconds. Okay, Scott Shapiro, 2032, 2070 Parkway. A little history lesson. We're going to go back in time. 2018, July 12th, I came to a city commission meeting and sent a memo to all the commissioners. Those of you guys that weren't here, you might appreciate this, you might not, I don't know. The purpose of this memo is to encourage you to consider forming a new board dedicated to the protection of the beaches and waterways of our great city. IRB is dominated by residential use that consists of 1.4 square miles, of which 0.9 is land and 0.5 is water. Approximately 13.2% of the city is recreational and 8.4% is conservation preservation areas that consist of wet and dry lands. We are a city of diverse, active, concerned citizens who would greatly benefit from a board that serves to protect and serve our greatest assets so that residents and tourists can benefit from them for years to come. The Intercoastal Waterway Committee, which I proudly served, reviewed policies such as the impact of the reclaimed water, public floating docks, island preservation, red tide cleanup, and other issues that impacted our beautiful paradise. The Beach Management Ad Hoc Committee served proudly to protect and provide evidence-based solutions to issues concerning our beloved public beaches. Sadly, neither of those boards exist today. That was 6 years ago. Volunteer citizen advisory boards are an integral part of American and local government. The creation of such boards serves both the legislative, executive, and judicial operations of the city by providing judicious advice from a citizen perspective. Having a board in place to study critical issues, take public testimony, perform research, review findings, discuss, analyze, formulate, and forward a well-developed and recommendation to the city and commission can only serve the greater good. If this board was active in 2014, perhaps the waterway debacle would not have been so poorly managed. In 2007, a commissioner wrote to our board, where I served as the vice chairman, seeking advice on how to create no-wake zones. And while it was highly unpopular, this place was packed, we researched and recommended that there was no reasonable evidence to support this action, and the commission followed our advice and closed the issue. While on the committee, and with the help of Danny Taylor, I created Resolution 2006-99, otherwise known as the Red Tide Resolution, that provides for a solution for waterway cleanup in the waterways. I also believe that if this board was in place, perhaps we could have foreseen the need for the customary use doctrine that would have been codified, that would have codified our public beach access regardless of the creation of HB 631. Which, by the way, Reddington Beach, congratulations, they did have a win in customary use, even though it's kind of weird. They banned shade. A citizen board is designed to build public consensus on controversial issues and provide detailed findings for the commission to review prior to meeting, discussing, and voting on far-reaching issues. A board is designed to address issues of interest and conduct background work on technical and political sensitive issues. A board that can act on both an administrative and advisory capacity can reduce the burden of the elected city commissioners on issues that should not be decided in one night. As you know, there are many issues that our beaches and waterways have faced in the past and will continue to deal with in the future. The lack of an advisory board that is dedicated to preserving our #1 asset, attraction, and namesake is a constraint and weakness for the management of our city and oversight of our natural resources that needs immediate attention. Resurrecting the boards would help solve future conflicts, otherwise I recommend forming one that serves both the waterways. I believe forming these boards will help protect our #1 resource and help build trust between the city and its citizens shareholders when it comes to the rights and privileges and diligent management of our resources. But most importantly, these boards act as a springboard to city commissioners. Okay, these folks learn about how our city works. They learn about Robert's Rules of Orders. They get involved. Without these boards, we're not going to have people sitting out here. We're not going to have people running, wanting to sit up there. We need to bring these boards back. It's been far too long. We had many boards when I first got to town, beautification, historical, all these different boards. And people were involved. They came to meetings. They didn't just come here to complain on the same topic over and over and over again or tell bad jokes. With that said, I'd like to see some boards. In fact, in this meeting, when I was here in 2018, there was only one commissioner that asked that it be put on the agenda to be talked about at a future meeting. It never happened. Who controls the agenda? Who controls what you guys discuss? Who controls what happens here? When I got here 23 years ago, which about 23 years ago, I didn't need glasses. I'm getting old, I need glasses now. But 23 years ago, it was a friendlier commission. It was a friendlier meeting. There'd be interaction. We'd be able to ask questions. If something was discussed by the public that was relevant, the commission would discuss it, or they'd provide that person an answer. It doesn't happen anymore. 3 months ago, I came here and came in front of you guys and asked first, I had a serious question. My rights were taken away. After 23 years of living in the city, my rights were taken away without discussion by any of you, without polling any of us in the public, by 2 city employees that are not shareholders or stakeholders of the city. They're employees. You guys are stakeholders. Most of them are stakeholders. But a house that I own back here, East of Gulf Boulevard, because on Easter they took a drive and there was people parked there, which I can tell you in 10 years, it happened maybe 3 or 4 times other than events at Cole Park. They put up no parking signs all over the city. 6 signs on a street with 3 houses. Suddenly my rights were taken away. I couldn't park in front of my own house. Now I since sold that house and I was in the process of selling it when that happened. But if I hadn't been able to sell it because of that, I can promise you I would have got legal advice as soon as possible and taken it. Because my rights should not have been taken away. I have a good friend that was the city manager of another beach city, and she told me that they polled residents and asked them, do you want your parking signs? Do you want to be able to park in front of your house? And they listened to the people. But here in this case, rights taken away, stripped away. We've got a city full of no parking signs. We are the city of no. I want to know how that happened. Please don't make me do a public records request. Please, because I will. I will go down that rabbit hole. Thank you.
Thank you, Scotty. Anyone else?
Hi, my name is Lisa Puglia. I'm at 266 Avenue. You hear it?
Yes.
I'm Lisa Puglia at 316 6th Avenue, and I'm here to start very positive. Some people in this city is not recognized, and I think public workers are extremely hard-working people that need this recognition and thanks. And I want to thank them. They work hard, they keep our city clean and beautiful, and It really is nice, makes it a nice place to live in. Okay, another thing is I'm here to update. The last time I was here, we were discussing 314 6th Avenue, the new building that you all have approved, the solid stairs versus open stairs, because the owner and the contractor did not know what is open, so they put whatever they wanted to put in. And they got away, okay? There are small things like curb, they put a new curb, and it's a little bit higher, because the water used to go down to the drain. Now it sits there and collects the debris and mess, mud. Pulled by the seawall, they have a chain link and a hedge. They pushed it in, I don't know why. They were doing new seawall. It's like little annoying things. The spotlight is right where we enjoy sitting outside and have occasion barbecue or regular lunch. And it's right, I think it's a camera on it. It seems like they want to see what we're eating or what we're doing back there. It's a very unusual location. Usually it's up front of the house or in the back, spotlight, so you can see somebody coming to your property. And that damn thing goes on at night. Each time the car passes by the property, the light goes on. And how lovely. Our bedroom's on that side. So each time the car drives by at night, wakes us all up. So it's been interesting. The bushes where the wall is were successful. They were growing there for 30 years now. But since they don't believe in any green Mother Nature, it's all plastic and the rocks. And they had to remove a lot of dirt right against the fence. And they took a lot of roots out and whatever effort that was done there, my bushes are dying. I really, little things like that, they're insignificant, but it's sure annoying. On top of that, there's no trespassing sign on each side of the house. I still have some edges that a hedge, bushes that I would like to trim on that side, but it's not trespassing. So I go there, right? To take care of the bushes. This is it?
Yes, thank you for your comment.
Do I get any answers? Or I have some other things?
I'm sorry, your 3 minutes are up, and no, we're not allowed to respond. Are there any other comments this evening? I'm closing the public comment and moving on to report of the city attorney.
No report, Madam Mayor.
Then next we'll move on to the report of the city manager.
Randy, can I take your 3 minutes? Thank you. I want to thank our team for the prep and the response to the Hurricane Debbie and the cleanup. Had some questions the last couple of days, particularly about the smell on the beach. There are large sponges that have washed up, continue to wash up. We're actively breaking the beach, so that's what that smell is. We supplied sand and sandbags like we usually do before the storm came in. Just want to remind the public there's detailed instructions for what to do and what not to do with sandbags, and that can be found on the website. And basically, if they didn't touch floodwaters, they can be stored and reused. Dumping sand from the bags on the beach is not the proper way to dispose of sandbags. I also want to remind the public, like I have for the last 3 months, of the tape on the wall, which is the storm surge height at Fort Myers Beach. And as part of my presentation, I'm going to ask the finance director to play a video clip that's about 2.5 minutes. And you can pay particular attention to the palm trees in the video. We could play to the end when the water goes back down, but I think you get the point of, I think complacency builds in a community where people, particularly who have lived here a long time, will say like, you know, there's an evacuation order, I can handle this. You can't handle that depth of water. And I just remind the public that when they ask you to leave, and I know it's a difficult thing, please do that. If not, the fire chief and others will have to come find you after the storm's over. The Ivy Nature Preserve Boardwalk is closed for reconstruction. The Nature Preserve was opened in the year 2000. There are funds allocated in this year's budget, and a contractor will continue to work into the fall, which will carry the project into the 2024-25 budget. The project includes replacing all the wood decking and railing with recycled composite material and repair to all the support members. We expect the boardwalk to reopen on or before the 1st of January. I want to thank the Friends of the City of Indian Rocks Beach Library for the thousands of hours that they volunteer at the library. You know, we're in the budget cycle, and I can tell you that if we didn't have the Friends of the library budget would look a lot different than it does right now. We have 2 upcoming budget meetings. One is September the 4th, the second is September the 18th at 6 p.m. We just received word that through the hard work of a lot of folks, including Dean and Colleen that works for Dean, we participate in the community rating system, which is a insurance-related program. We have to provide permitting information of a long list of things that we have to do annually. And we just received word that the City of Indian Rocks Beach will receive renewal of the CRS program, and that saves policyholders in Indian Rocks Beach about $700,000 a year for participating in that project. We had a pedestrian shelter down at Villa Galachi that was destroyed as a result of a traffic accident in June of this year. The finance director is working with the automobile drivers insurance company to handle that problem financially. We're in the process of issuing a PO to build that bus shelter back. Tonight we have a work session concerning beach parking. It's been a topic of discussion for beach cities up and down Pinellas County. Whether we like it or not, we're the last city to provide free parking along the beach. If the commission reaches a consensus after discussion and public input, the administrative team will move forward with whatever direction the majority of the commission directs. So, you know, as we move to the work session, the decision to leave it the same, change it is totally up to the commission. We'll talk about the various parts of that the commission has discussed. And we look forward to sharing ideas and having a productive and respectful discussion. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
Well, Greg, I mean, we're the only beach left that doesn't charge for parking, correct?
That's correct.
Every other beach charges. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Does anybody have any questions for Greg? All right, well then I'd like the report of the City Commission. Judith, we'll start with you.
I don't have any.
Okay. John?
I do not have anything to report.
Oh.
Been a little bit busy as a commissioner, doing as much as I can in the neighborhood. I will say that the invitation by our fire chief, that was really special. And I wish that more of the community would have been there, but it's not every day that we get to do that. And it was you know, they rang the bells, told the bells for the firefighters passed. It was very emotional. It was a really nice thing for our community to get that new truck. So I was happy to be there.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
Tomorrow I head over to Hollywood, Florida for the Florida League of Cities Conference, and I'm really excited to have the opportunity to network with other leaders from communities that have similar issues to us, and see what kind of solutions they're looking at, see what I can glean from that, and also look to see if there are some big committees that I might be able to squeeze myself onto that I think will help us in the long term. So I look really forward to the next couple of days. Thank you.
I guess the one thing I wanted to talk about is the Stinky Beach. Because from what I'm reading, it's not just the sea sponges and the sea pork out there that's causing all that smell. I read about over 100 million gallons of wastewater that went in there because our sewage systems within the Tampa Bay area were overwhelmed by Tropical Storm Debbie. And much of that water went in there untreated because the sewage system couldn't handle, you know, we got 10 inches of rain here. So, you know, our systems are antiquated and it just couldn't handle that much water, and they didn't have another alternative other than just to release it into the streams and rivers and into the Gulf. And I'm not sure how long that takes to get cleaned up, but I think that's more of the smell out there. I'll send you that article from the Tampa Bay Times. My only other thing to report is IRB Home is looking for volunteers for the holiday tour of home, and that means if you want to decorate your home to be a part of that tour. So contact Beth at IRB Home. Thank you. Next, we'll move on to additions, deletions. Do we have any, Lauren? No. Thank you. And the consent agenda?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There are 6 items on the consent agenda. Items are item A, approval of the July 9, 2024 regular City Commission meeting minutes. Item B, approval of the July 16, 2024 special City Commission meeting minutes. Item C, confirming action taken during the July 16, 2024 special City Commission meeting. Item D, approval of the July 16, 2024 City Commission budget work session minutes. Item E, approval of the fiscal year 2025 law enforcement contract with the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office. And item F, accept and filing the June 2024 year-to-date financial report. This has been a reading of all items on the consent agenda, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Would someone make a motion, please?
I make a motion that we accept the consent agenda items.
Second.
All right, we have a motion to approve and a second.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Public hearings, we have none. Other legislative matters, we have none. It's time to move on to the work session, a discussion of possible paid parking program for Indian Rocks Beach. So I guess to start this discussion, do you want me to start it or do you want to start it?
You can kick it off.
Okay.
So then
You know, I guess the first decision we need to make as a commission is, do we want to pursue paid parking? And I'd kind of like to take a vote on that. Hope, do you want to move on to paid parking? Or do you want to say, no, let's not do paid parking?
Without discussion, or we?
Well, it's kind of like we have to decide, do we want to do that?
Do we want to do that? There's stuff.
The 4 of us, yeah.
And does anybody get input on that?
Absolutely.
Yes. Okay, I mean, I would like to hear what everybody has to say, yes.
Okay.
I definitely do.
Okay. Jude?
Absolutely.
John?
Yes.
Okay. So at least we've opened the floor that we're open to reviewing and discussing paid parking. So then, not just talking about when, where, and how, but about parking rates. Does anybody, I think, Greg, you had an idea of what's the standard rate for?
Yeah, if you go to the second page, Dan. Go to the second page. Yeah. We sent the commission in the agenda packet a survey, the parking rates up and down the beach. In addition to the ones that we gave you, the Plumley lots in the business district, they charge $8 an hour. There's a 2-hour minimum. And then Reddington Beach, there's the old pier. They converted that into commercial parking lot, and their rate is $5.30. I don't know how we came up with that number. But then you look at this sheet, these are the different various cities up and down the beach. Some have flat rates and some have weekly rates with higher rates on weekends, and you can see those. The other thing that we did was, and this is part of the discussion you have to have, is different cities do paid parking different ways. Some cities have 24/7 paid parking, and then some cities have hours. And as we get to it, probably the way I would recommend that you go about this is you really have to look at the 3 main areas where if you implemented paid parking would be impacted by this. 1 is the beach accesses, and 2 is the business district, and then 3 are the parks. That includes the Nature Preserve, Cole Park, 10th Avenue Park, and Brown Park. Because you get into discussions there about whether you're going to do the 24/7. But this gives you the averages. You have the public rates, in the $4 range is probably the average. There's some outliers there. Bel Air Beach has a $5.35, and they have a $10.35 weekend. My opinion about the $10.35 that's too high, not an appropriate parking rate. But I would say the average across all the public parking lots is about $4 an hour.
And then even if we would go to something like $4 an hour, the municipal park down here on 17th, since that's the county's park, that'll stay at $250?
No, we would have a discussion with the county, and we've done this a few times since I've been here. The city is has an interlocal agreement with the county where the city gets 60% of the proceeds from the county lot, and the county gets 40. Part of the reason why we get 60% of the proceeds is that we, in our annual budget, as part of our janitorial contract, our janitorial folks maintain the restrooms. And we supplement, we do some things on it too. But the way the parking rates are established by the county commission is they give the county manager the ability to adjust rates. So if y'all decide to implement paid parking, through that implementation process, we would, out of respect for the county, I would have a conversation with the county administrator about what rate y'all are looking at, because they probably would want to match what we're doing, so to be consistent. But he can do that administratively. The county commission does not have to act to do that. But you're right, it's currently $250 an hour.
I mean, I propose we probably set a rate like right at $4 an hour. I think that's right in the middle of the road with what all the other beaches are charging.
And one other thing I think is important, if I can, Denise, to say right off the bat, is without exception, the cities that have implemented paid parking, the most recently, the cities that have done it or implemented it is Indian Shores and Bel Air Beach, is that if you go forward with paid parking, part of the recommendation that we'd make is that property owners and residents that have parking decals could basically park where they want. And that's consistent with every city up and down the beach. All these cities that have beach parking, that's their policy. It's part of the resolution that when they set up the fees is that if you implement public parking, if you're one of the folks that have resident parking or property owner parking decals, you could park wherever you want and not have to pay for parking.
Well, that's good to know. So all residents that have a sticker can still park where they want at no charge.
Would there still be designated resident spaces, or would it all be one big lot?
No, ma'am, I recommend you keep the designated spaces, because if you don't,
We don't have any.
then the other side, they'll be taken up. So in theory, you'd have the right to park where you want, but by retaining the resident spaces, and most of the cities have different location of resident spaces. It's just, I think you want to keep that, just to give you, and I will tell you, and that's one reason why I asked Mike Kelly to be here tonight, is that, you know, I particularly have been kind of watching the beach parking real closely for a number of months, and due to the increase in fines that were put in place, and Randy, I don't know exactly how long ago that was, but probably 3 or 4 years ago, we have less of a problem now with non-residents parking in resident parking spaces, because by the time you pay the $75 fee and you pay court costs and other things that you may incur, we still have it, but not to the degree that we were having it before. So, but no, I just think you definitely want to keep the designated spaces for residents.
Good.
And then we talked about maybe having a different set of hours for the beach access as opposed to the parks.
Yeah, and that's entirely up to the commission. You know, the cities that are listed there have a variety of different hours, but you know, one of the things that we were asked about, somebody brought up at, I think the last commission meeting, was years ago there was a provision where you couldn't park overnight at beach accesses, and when the changes were made to the penalties, that was taken out. So that I think it's probably warrant a discussion by the current commission to talk about, and as we talk about the business triangle in the parks, you have that same conversation. We'll talk about, you know, whether you're inclined to have a 24-hour rule that you pay 24 hours a day. There are some beaches, in fact, I just visited one recently, Jacksonville Beach, that you pay, I think it started at 6 a.m. in the morning. Theirs went to 8. Their beach accesses are completely different from ours. The commercials intermix with condos and houses and all that. So, you know, one of the things for you to consider is a 24-hour, or, you know, you could do like a 7 to 5, where you have to pay. And that way, after a certain point in the day, if people want to come down and see the sunset, because in parking enforcement, the critical times that were overrun is during the peak daytime hours. Are you going to have people that come down to see the sunset? Sure, but I think that's why some cities have that you know, span like that from early in the morning to the afternoon, to then provide the evenings where people can more casually. And as we talk about the business district, you know, the same kind of logic would apply to the business district, because there's probably more some consideration about the commission there again about 24-hour versus is it going to be, you know, early morning, late afternoon. Because I can tell you, I've talked to a number of the businesses in the triangle, particularly the larger restaurant operators down there. And I know they get somewhat frustrated by the fact that, you know, the business triangle is so close to the beach that somebody will come take a parallel parking space and tie it up for 4 or 5 hours. And at least if you had paid parking through at least part of the day, if not 24 hours a day, but at least part of the day, that encourages some movement where people will go and, you know, visit the restaurants and those kind of things. So that's another thing for you to consider. So back to what you asked me, you know, that's probably the thing to do is have a discussion about specifically the beach accesses and whether you're inclined for that to be a 24-hour thing or you know, 7 to 5 or whatever it is. And then another second part of that is whether you want to have from in there just throw out times, you know, 12 to 5 a.m. or some period of time where, you know, nobody parks at the beach accesses, because we've had people complain about, you know, people at 1 o'clock in the morning parking and doing things. So those are the issues associated with the parking at the beach accesses.
But still, if I'm a resident and I live on the beach, I should be able to use the beach access parking even overnight.
Yes, and that's the other piece of this, is that currently the city code provides that anybody can park a vehicle on a public right-of-way, or in that case, a beach access for up to 72 hours. We think internally it's probably a little too long because people abuse that, but to answer your question specifically, yeah, if you had a resident decal, you'd be allowed to park there.
So I want to go back to the business district. So is there a way in the business district, I'm not in that area, but I know how busy it can be down there, to limit the amount of parking? Like I've seen that, I feel like in downtown St. Pete, so even though it's metered, like it's like a 2-hour maximum type of thing, so that way you don't have the beach campers staying out all day willing to pay for that.
Yeah,
so that's on that end.
Yeah, through the vendors that are into the parking apps, and that's probably what we recommend that we go with, because we can piggyback on other cities' contracts. You can set that up however you want to.
Okay.
And you can set it up by area. So if you wanted to do it in the business area, you could do a 2-hour, however you want to do that.
I would want, and from that, I would really want to hear from the people in that business district, because it really affects them the most. And as far as the overnight parking, or the nighttime parking, I don't really even feel like you should have a decal to be able to go there. A lot of people, it's not the majority, but a lot of people do like to go to the beach to enjoy the nighttime. Maybe they don't want to be blasted by the sun, maybe they want to fish, so they have the right to use the beach also, not just residents in the evening. So if we did cap it at, if we do this and we cap it at 5 or 6, whatever it is, like whomever should be able to still come and park. Residents in their parking spaces, and the other spaces that are available for people that are neighbors in Largo.
Yeah, we talked about having a cutoff for paid parking.
Yeah.
So whether it's 5, 6, 7 p.m. or whatever.
Yeah, but not only to the residents.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I think that was looking at, I think Greg said like 12 a.m. to 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. because we are starting to have people.
Well, I get that. I'm one of those people. I'm one of those people that's out there after midnight because I have a different schedule, and so do a lot of people. So if I am out there for a late sunset and I feel like sitting there and watching the moon set, I feel like I want to do that.
But you have a resident decal, so you would be okay.
But I'm not the only one, though, even though, so maybe my friend just over the bridge off of Hamlin wants to come and join me, so we don't feel like carpooling.
But if you did it, if you were out there hanging out in the day and your friend wanted to come over from Largo, they just have to pay for parking.
Oh, they pay, yeah,
So,
during the day
that's,
until the cutoff.
I don't know whether the sun is up or down, I don't think that's really
but not
that important.
I don't think you really need the 12 to 5 a.m. thing. Nobody out there that late is being loud.
Well,
I've been out there plenty.
Are there any towns that actually have a 24-hour paid parking program? Wow, that's
Yeah, they.
And I do agree, 72 hours is way too
Bel Air Beach is 24/7. Madeira Beach is 24/7. And those are the main ones. All the others have some variation of, like Paso Grill, their pay is 8 to 8. Madeira Beach City Hall, theirs is 8 to 4:30. So it's all over. Indian Shores City Hall, and they just started theirs recently, 7 to 5. So after 5 o'clock, you can park in their lot. And I think that's like the discussion about the business district. I think that's to accommodate the businesses, in particular like the restaurant, something like the same stores, to accommodate their business.
Of course, yeah. Do you think there would be a similar issue here then, as far as businesses?
What I would want to do, because this is purely a work session, to try to get some guidance from the commission on generally how you feel about this topic, whether you want to change anything or not, is once we kind of get a list of what you're looking at, is that what I will do is follow up with entire business street, like in the triangle, and have a discussion with them officially about what y'all are leaning towards doing, and bring back some feedback to the commission about, what we've learned. I've met with some of the business owners there, and they recognize that there's a problem with people tying up spaces. But once y'all kind of determine where you're headed, then I can go back to them with some more detail and say, how do you feel about what they're talking about? Because ultimately, where this would go if you change what we're doing to some form of paid parking is that I'd work with Randy to develop like a resolution that y'all would adopt that would set the rates and generally what the rules are. And that's when then officially then we could begin to implement paid parking if you decide to go there. So based on your decisions or directions you give tonight, then we'll have more conversation with particularly business folks down in the triangle about what you're thinking about.
I have a question about now that we're talking about this, the Little League area. So what are we gonna do for the Little League field whenever we have the games and stuff like that? Are we having parents paying to park to watch their kids play baseball?
No, that's one reason why I think it's best to have a discussion about beach accesses, business triangle, and parks.
The different
because
parks.
they're kind of different situations.
Yeah.
You have if you have paid parking, the nature preserve parking area, the 10th Avenue Park, a few spaces that are there, in Brown Park, that's pretty easy.
Yeah.
Because if you have paid parking, it opens at sunrise and it closes, or it opens at 7 and it closes at sunset. So those are pretty easy. If you're gonna do paid parking, you just have paid parking because those parks legally close at those times. Cole Park is very complicated because not only do we have City Hall here, we have the Art Center next door, we have a lease contract with the Little League that you just brought up, and then we have the senior softball league that plays before the Little Leaguers play. So that's why I think you have to, when you talk about this, you have to talk about those different pieces, because I think the Cole Park is going to have to be addressed separately, separately.
Yeah.
And there's no perfect way to do it. And one thing that you have to remember is when you set up a program like this, if you provide too many exceptions for what you're doing, you're better off just not doing it. In other words, I had a discussion with somebody recently, and they said, won't name their organization, well, what if y'all just gave us like 30 passes? And it's like, by the time you do all that, if that's a problem in the area that you're working, you're better off just leaving it like it is. But one of the things that we talked about yesterday internally was Cole Park, and this is not a perfect fix, is that the Cole Park area, our parking area, the parking areas around the baseball field, the pickleball courts and tennis courts, that could be like a 7 to 5 arrangement. It would accommodate most things. The Little League particularly, that's usually about the time they show up to work on the field and get ready for the night games. And in fact, Mike was the president or the CEO of the Little League for a long period of time.
Yeah.
But the problem with that idea is that it wouldn't accommodate the afternoon senior ball players, because because I think Paul's back there, he may can tell us, but there's a large percentage of the IRB senior softball league now that are not IRB residents.
Right.
So if you had parking restrictions and you had IRB residents playing senior softball, if they got a decal, they don't have an issue because they can pull up here and park. But all the other people that play softball, then that creates a problem for them. The volunteers at the library, that's easier for us to handle because that's no more than 2 people in there. We can generate, a bright orange, bright red, laminated parking pass that when somebody comes in to volunteer, they park their car, they come into the library and get it, stick it in the dash. We can do the same thing for the Art Center, but the only problem that the parking discussion creates around Gold Park for the Art Center is, like the daytime when they have an art class of some sort, people that come here, if they're not residents, and you have parking in the daytime, they're going to have to pay for it. And of course, that's not unusual. We all know that when we go to downtown Clearwater, we go downtown St. Petersburg, you go to art, anything, you pay, but we just need to be sure to put all the different aspects of this on the table, because there's repercussions
Yes.
in how people are affected, and that's why, like I said, it's probably better for us to maybe go back to the beach accesses and work our way around it.
So leave those out. I mean, even
Yeah.
just putting signs that say no beach parking and 2-hour limits or something around that entire area.
Yeah.
So that way, again, you don't have the people hiking, staying at the park all day.
Yeah, the problem with having a sign that says no beach parking is the only way we can enforce that is we have to literally catch somebody getting out of their car and walking a block and prove that they're going to the beach.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing that has to be considered when you implement a program like this, is that there's a lot of good ideas out there, but we have to be able to install signage, whether it's at the beach accesses or business district or at a park, that clearly explains to people what the rules are, so they're not confused about,
I do understand, and I know that we're mainly focused on the beach access parking, and, but I have heard people's complaints about the residents not being able to park in the 10th Avenue Park to access that park, to go to the dog park and walk on the nature reserve, because there's people parked there all day. So I know that I'm just bringing up all the things that I've heard, because I've talked to a lot of people, so, I just want to find, if this is what we're going to do, some kind of equal medium, and also I want to know what the backlash might be going into the neighborhoods. So I know we're not talking about no parking signs, but there are plenty of those up right now, but what is going to be the backlash into the neighborhood?
We've had a number of years to work on that, and it was brought up earlier about how those were installed. Those were installed based on a discussion that the previous city commission had, because if you go back and read all those minutes I sent you, there were hours, meeting after meeting, discussions about, well, let's just have it where residents can park on the street. If you have a decal, you can park there. Bel Air Beach, they have an ordinance that nobody can park on the street. And then you have to go to City Hall to get passed when you have a party, which I think is nuts and is a waste of time. So the decision was made to no park streets. And I'll just use myself as an example. We're all generally pretty lazy people, and people are only going to walk so far back off the beach to get to the beach. And through the years of taking that policy that the commission approved and implementing it, we may have a couple of spots left. One, for example, would be, and particularly if y'all go with the paid parking program, would be East Gulf Boulevard, is that we probably would have to do some more work down there. But we've locked down pretty much the beach parking because of the installation of the signs. And I'll be the first to admit, I'm not a big parking person, and aesthetically, and we've done a lot of things here to improve aesthetics. They're not the greatest thing, but legally, the number signs, like on a block, is mandated by like a traffic code on the distances where you have to place those things. So as far as you're concerned about if you have paid parking, how's it going to affect? Based on what we've seen beyond the no parking signs that we have, most people, now would that be everybody, but the majority of people are not going to park on the end of Harbor Drive South and walk all the way to the beach. So, and they're getting
drop off, like the people that drop off, the minivan drop off.
Yeah, and that happens.
Goes and walks all the way back.
And that the continued evaluation of the whole no parking sign thing, if you implemented paid parking, would be something we would just keep track of. And we make the tweak as we go along, but that part's, and I'll just tell you, just for the record, since it was brought up, I've been here 11 years, and in fact I was counting them up, including a couple of folks that are here tonight. I've had probably 5 complaints about no parking signs the whole time I've been here. It's been just the opposite, where we've skipped areas, we've had people come out of the woodwork to say, we want the same thing, because we have, in fact, some of the streets, like along the 10th, Ninth, kind of that stretch area, it was so bad a couple of years ago that the folks that lived back in the neighborhood, back in the fingers, back in the back, they were concerned about being able to get out. Because at that point, we didn't have any no parking. We tried no parking on one side of the street, and then that caused problems because when people line up on the other side of the street, you got cars doing this all day. And that's why it's just easier to no park virtually every side street that we have. And it has resulted in no complaints other than the handful that we've had recently.
And I get that, and I just would like to just mention maybe looking at that again at a later date once we do that, and maybe residents only parking on those streets, and then it would not have the argument with the signs, it wouldn't get ticketed to park in front of my own house, things like that. So just I want to put that, I know we're not talking about that today, but I do want to say I would like to revisit that another time.
Well, and the other thing to add to the discussion on putting the no parking signs in the residential areas, we don't have sidewalks. And as somebody who walks a lot, you have to walk in the street. And I do not feel real safe, as he talked about the East Gulf area, is one we need to look at because they do not pay any attention when they're pulling out. And I don't know how many times Kenzo and I have had to make a sprint somewhere. So that's another thing that makes us a little bit different than some residential areas is we just don't have sidewalks. So.
All right, so now that we've gotten entirely off course, let's drag it back into some kind of agreement on what an hourly fee for parking should be. I proposed $4 an hour. Does anyone else have another price they'd like to discuss?
Is that for 7 days?
Well, it would just be for the whole island. If we're gonna have paid parking, it would be $4 an hour.
So you don't want it, is there any value in having it different in different areas? Or are we just going to look at adjusting those by
There's gonna be
hours?
premium parking like at the beach accesses?
No,
If you gotta walk 2 blocks, it's $3.50.
I would recommend that whatever your rate is, it's the rate for everything and everybody, because there again, from a public understanding, signage issue, it's, like the ones that have almost, where they have $4 and they have $4.75 on the weekend, it just creates confusion. And I just say you just set the rate, whatever the rate is, and that's what it is. And you can, like other things that you look at, you can, if you implement this, a year or two down the road, you can reevaluate it and say, well, now everybody's this, we'll give you another survey and you can adjust it. But, having like the 420 rate doesn't, just round it off and have it all the same for all your paid parking.
I think it should be higher.
Yeah, it'd be like 4 or 5.
5.
Jude, thoughts on $5 an hour? You are parking in paradise,
I mean, I'm perfectly fine with 5.
Okay.
I can live with either.
Yeah, either
Okay.
one is fine with me. I wouldn't want to go under 4.
Folks choking on the paid parking.
I'm not paying it.
That's right, you got a resident.
I mean, I understand.
Okay. So we're in.
Just so you're all clear, you're not setting anything right now.
Yeah, we're not setting anything. We're just kind of.
It is a discussion,
Yes,
and you're still getting community feedback. This is to preliminarily
Right.
begin that discussion, but nothing is being set at this moment.
It allows us to get a better sense of what the results
A
might be.
starting point, starting point for paid parking, but no, it's not cast in stone yet, and we're not gonna be developing an ordinance next week.
Well, it should be a premium beach.
Okay, so now that we've kind of narrowed that down, then we need to determine what hours parking is, like what time is paid parking over?
Well, I think that should depend on the area it is. I think something like the beach, you can easily do like 8 to 8, but that's not gonna fly next to CVS in those parallel spots where you might wanna do something like 8 to 5 or something.
Okay.
With the beach, just for clarity reasons, the beach access is whatever it would be, the beach access is literally on the west side of Gulf Boulevard. You talk about the business district separately, so.
Well,
I
then
like
maybe
it.
that makes sense,
I'm
Jude,
cool
we
with
should
8 to
do We could do 8 to 8 on the beach accesses. We could do 8 to 8 in the parks, and we could do 8 to 5 in the business triangle.
Although, as Greg and Hope both pointed out, the problem with the parks, well, Kolb is different.
Right.
Of course,
Yep.
we'll just look at Kolb separately after you guys show us all the different ramifications. And then the other thing, of course, is any other, where else is there parking that I'm forgetting?
That's it.
That's it.
Huh?
Grounds.
So just, and the little parks do themselves, as you said, because of the hours. And then the only other one is Keaton Clare, and that could be, the same as everything in the rest of the
There's Brown, that's right, on the edge of the beginning part of the neighborhood.
You guys are all talking, it's not being recorded.
Sorry about that.
But that would be included with the nature intents.
Yeah, Brown Park,
Yeah.
Brown Park, the 10th Avenue Park, and what's the other one?
Nature.
Nature Preserve. Those are all 7 a.m. to sunset. So that's when they legally close. So those will all, if you had to pay parking, you'd pay from the time they open to the time they close. That's the easier part of the conversation, or those three.
I just wouldn't feel comfortable really deciding anything in the business district until you have that conversation with
Yeah, but I would like to have some
consensus.
Well,
I think
some-
it should be limited parking. I don't think that they should be able to park there all day.
Well, that's exactly what I need, so then I can go back and have conversations with the businesses that
Yeah.
agree to say, this is the way the commission's leaning, how do you, the specifics help me with going and having that conversation.
Like a 4-hour limit, something like
At
that.
2-hour limit.
I don't know, if lunch can go longer than 2 hours.
If you're lunching with Jude, yes.
No, come on.
Well,
Or maybe 3, but
I don't know, 2 hours, I mean, the district's not that big. You're having
Yeah.
a long lunch, I mean, you can go back out and put some more money on the parking thing,
Yeah, and then if you're using it for beach parking, then you gotta come up every 2 hours?
Well, you could probably do it on your phone.
You just gotta.
Oh, that's true.
You're gonna
Excuse
run
me,
with an
that's right,
app.
if we go
Yeah.
with Park Mobile, you can top up on your phone.
Yeah.
All right, well, then that kind
How
of,
do you
then what do
even
you do with
limit
the
that?
2-hour limit then? How
exactly,
does
so
that work?
how do you do that?
Can we, y'all were talking fast, which I
Yeah.
appreciate, but back to the beach accesses, the times y'all were throwing out, was it 8 to 8?
8 to 8.
Okay. I'm sorry.
And the only weird thing about that is a lot of people arrive before 8 and go for a walk and don't get back to their cars till after 8. So we'll have to figure out.
Well, it would be like any other paid parking area, if you're there after 8,
Yes,
you need to
there.
go pay.
On your phone.
On your phone.
Pay it on your phone.
And they just don't have to pay after 8.
Just have Frank chalk the wheel.
Frank does more than that, but.
I mean, if they get there before 8, that way they would know they were already
Yeah,
there.
the way most of these apps work is, we would, these are details we would have to work out, is that code enforcement officers and sheriff's office deputies, but primarily the code enforcement, through these companies, they would have the ability to log in to the app, and they can run a tag number, and it doesn't tell them who the, they don't get the information like a policeman would get, because legally they can get that. But they would be provided whether that tag is paid to park there or not. And if it has not paid to park there, they would cite them for parking illegally. That's how the enforcement end of this is done, through the app.
Well, are there any other ideas about different hour setups that make more sense to somebody else?
Well, I mean, we're saying like, even if it's 8 to 8 on the beach access, after 8 p.m. parking's free anyway until, parking shuts down at midnight for anybody doesn't have a parking pass.
Yeah. I'm pretty comfortable with that in general.
Yeah, I like that.
I disagree with the nobody being able to park at the beach access.
Excuse me?
I just disagree
Please
with
speak into the
nobody.
microphone.
Sorry. I disagree with nobody being able to park there after midnight, like after 8, from 8 to 8, it is just what it is.
You can with the
that
parking.
is, you
But
can.
only with the parking.
No, you can still park from 8 to midnight. if you're a non-resident. And if you're a resident, you can still park 24
Because
hours.
that's
is
not what
that-
it sounded like you just said. That only with a parking decal we
Well,
can
that's
park
residents.
At midnight.
after midnight.
Yeah.
So.
You're having different conversations.
I
in
feel
terms of
like we
the hours
are.
you're metering versus the hours you're permitted
Yes,
to
I
park.
understand that. So the meter parking is from 8 to 8, after 8, from 8 PM to 8 AM, it should just be free parking. But now we're throwing in the after 12 AM, so from 12 AM to 5 AM, no one can park there unless you have a decal. Why is that?
Well, because we've had issues with people parking and living in the beach accesses.
But then that's where you change the 24-hour, the 72-hour thing. That's not where you just decide who can go to the beach at 2 AM and relax.
Yeah, I get that. I can see wanting to go to the beach at 2 AM if I were over the
If you-
bridge.
Literally.
You
So I don't think that
I mean, there
limiting
are other
it like
places to
that.
park, but
On the beach access,
Yeah,
going
no,
to
but
the
it's
beach,
not
that
beach
seems like a place to park, to walk out to the beach and put your feet in the sand and relax. Because not all of us have the same schedules.
Well, one thing that you can consider is, you know, if you, whether it's 8 to 8 or some other hours, you know, if you implement that, you could leave along the issue of the after hours, which y'all are talking like 12 to 5 or whatever. And that could be something that, you know, we monitor for a period of time after we implement the paid parking and see whether it's a real issue or not. There's already other ordinances on the books that we have about people sleeping in vehicles, and those are addressed routinely.
Yeah.
So you know, it's important to talk about, but that may be something you could just not include in a parking plan, and we could implement it, and then we could just look at it for a period of time and see whether that's a problem or not.
Okay.
But we, back to Denise's point, we've had, some people come to commission meetings that live on the beach accesses that have had some issues, and that's why.
I was here when Adrian was here.
Yeah, is that, and that encourages turnover also, where people have to move their cars, but out there, I think that's maybe a piece that could wait for a period of time, and you could look at that later if you want to. So if I may help with this, Denise, for a
Yes.
second. So moving to the business triangle, maybe y'all can have discussions about, and, you know, Hope's brought up 2-hour limit and those kind of things, maybe have discussions about 24/7, or if that's some other schedule, or if that's 8 to 8, or, you know, what do you think about
I
that?
think we said 8 to 5 in the business triangle.
because that allows people, well, what's the rationale for that? Well, it encourages people to go to restaurants and that sort of thing. It's really the main benefit. It's kind of a sort of an incentive to hang out for the evening. But I mean, what's the real purpose behind it?
Yeah, if there's no way to implement a time limit on it, why not just make it 8 to 8 then, like just everybody else? If you can up it from your phone and there's no way to limit being able to have a limit parking, so people are staying there all day instead of going to the restaurants, they're going to the beach and not to Krabby's or Villa Galate or whatever it is.
Well, you can, I mean, if we want to go that way, we can limit the number of hours they're parked there. And excuse me, I might be wrong about this, but I'm thinking when you re-up a phone, they still may have that 2-hour limit, so then it gets noted that you've been there longer than 2 hours.
And you can't re-up it.
I'm not certain, but
Yeah,
I'm
I don't
sure,
know.
I'm imagining there's some.
That depends on how you configure your parking zones. Some cities in different areas have it so you are unable to, and in others, you can. I parked in downtown St. Pete last week, was having dinner, and extended an additional 2 hours. There's other parts of the city of Clearwater where you're sitting there, it's 2 hours, you gotta move your car, you can't be in that zone.
Okay.
Well, I think even if we do the 2 hours and can limit it, I do think maybe we do want to do 8 to 8 for the business district. Otherwise, people are going to catch on that, oh, hey, if I move myself down there at 5 o'clock, I don't think we're still going to get that turnover that we want to do for our businesses.
No, in fact, probably make it worse for the businesses.
Exactly. So I think we need to make that 8 to 8, even with that 2 hour.
Okay. So limit that.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Cold Park, different altogether.
Whole different ballpark.
And that's, you know, so might do, make sure I wrote this down correctly. So in the business district, you're talking about the same AKA for that, right?
Yes.
Yeah, Cole Park, when we, Dean and Dan and I last week rode down the beach and you're looking at signage and, you know, parking spaces for city halls where you do business and all those kind of things. In St. Pete Beach, they have a rec center that has a park around it, and it's kind of off the beach. It's further off the beach than Cole Park is, I'll give you that. But at that park, they did not, it's that facility in the park, in the playground, you know, equipment, those kind of things they have there, they didn't charge for people to park there. So that's one option at Cole Park, is to do that. My only concern about doing that is if you implement paid parking in the beach accesses and you have paid parking in the business triangle, it's like blowing up a balloon, then people are going to go to where the free parking is. We had a weekend, we had a couple weekends until we, you know, everybody hates signs. We had put up some more signs where the grass area by the lift station was completely covered with cars, because unless if you don't have signs, you can't sight people. So that's why signs are up. So we have to put signs up. So as we talked about, as I mentioned earlier, Cole Park's is a more complicated discussion because of City Hall, meetings that go on during the day, City Commission meetings. Library's easy to handle. I can handle that with, if we have paid parking, I can handle that with volunteers and having the little things they would put in their dash when they park to go in. The art center is an issue because of, if you have paid parking, even if you do it during the daytime, they're going to have things going on over there that unless if you're not an IRB resident, you're going to pay to park. That's what they do. And then Little League, which if you did a daytime parking schedule, can be addressed because you can cut parking off. You need to cut it off before 8. Then that's why this might have to be different. Cut it off before 8 where the Little Leaguers can set up and play. But the problem that even with that schedule, I mentioned this earlier, but say it again, that causes is that the softballers that play softball in the afternoon, you know, if you have that daytime schedule where you have to pay, but you know, if you're not there in the IRB resident, you're playing softball, you have to pay to play over there. So that's what I was saying earlier on. That's the probably because all the other parks are what we talked about. They open up at 7 o'clock and they close at sunset, so those are done. But this one's a little different. So, you know, there's not an easy answer because you're never, no matter, even if you do you know, a 7 to 5, you got to pay to park around City Hall and Cole Park. You're not going to accommodate everybody, and you know, a lot of things you never can accommodate everybody. But I just, you know, want y'all to be fully aware that this area is more complicated just because of the players that we have, the mix that we have between Little League, senior softball, the art center, and the operation of City Hall.
Where do all the pickleballers park?
Let's start.
Well, that's kind of a sore subject in City Hall, the whole pickleball thing. You know, and just kind of bring y'all up to date on that. Most mornings, even in the heat that we're in right now, but it's even bigger in the fall. We had somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 to 80 people on the tennis courts and the pickleball courts almost every morning. And I'll just say publicly that because the majority of them are not IRB residents, they're a very difficult group to deal with. And unfortunately, the other cities that we've looked at pickleball facilities, I think that's for some reason the way they run. But right now, they line up on what's the other street? First Street. We had to put up there again the signs that nobody likes. No parking signs at the corner because we were having some safety issues with trucks and garbage trucks and people making that corner there by the pickleball courts. So they line up there. And I'll just tell you that probably what's coming is, whether you do pay parking or not, is that little strip where they park is probably going to be it has going to be no park because it's gotten completely out of control. And then the balance of, fully answer your question, the balance of where the rest of the party of 80 park is, all the way around the park. Mainly, right, the spaces right here on this, by the gazebo, and they take up, I think on occasion, take up spaces in front of the art center. And I'll just, be real frank with you. I had a meeting with a handful of people 3 or 4 months ago that live here about the frustrations of how overcrowded that one facility is, and the paid parking aspect of it. If we could figure out, how we do it, how we set it in place in Cole Park, maybe actually will help residents again that have the ability to walk on a tennis court or a pickleball court, because it's very difficult to do that now. So the theory of, like you did 8-8, if you did Cole Park 75, that will accommodate the majority of the issues, but it's still going to create some heartburn with the art center, with classes during the day, and nobody's ever paid, they're going to pay now, and then it's going to create issues with the other group, which is the softball league that plays in the afternoons, because and then they're getting Paul, I think, as well. The majority of the softballers now that are in the league are not IRB residents, so all those people have to pay. So that's it. I don't mean to be long-winded, but make sure you understand all that.
How many softball players are we talking about?
I don't know. Dean, did you get on the list? What were we doing?
I'd say at least 60.
Yeah.
Okay. I just wondered if those could, you talked about some laminated passes for somebody, but that's too many. I was thinking maybe we're talking 20 or, yeah.
Yeah, that, and that's what I alluded to earlier, is that in Cole Park, it's just a different creature, is that, if you start kind of going down that path, you're better off just leaving it alone and let people park, and then you have to ride it out and see what happens when you charge everybody to park everywhere else and they overflow this out here. But so there's not a perfect answer for that, unfortunately.
I'd rather see we charge, and then if necessary, if it becomes such an issue, go back on it, because I think it will be an issue that everybody will scramble to it, because, oh, wait a minute, let's go take this. And then our residents won't even have an option to do it, worse than it is now with them trying to do pickleball, which you're right, they really can't get there.
And that's what we've dealt with the last couple of years, particularly about, now us being officially the last city that didn't charge, is that, I do the same thing. I mean, if I've got to pay, if I'm going to pay $10.35 an hour to park at the Bel Air Beach parking lot, and I can drive 2 miles south and park at Indian Rocks Beach for free, I know where I'm going. I'm going to IRB to do that.
As far as all the parking around the administrative buildings here, of course, there's, I think, 5 or 6 spots in front of the art center. Those are art center spots, right? Those ones?
Well, not really.
Or are they city spots?
If you look at the survey of the property, those head-end parking spaces, they're half in city right away and they're half on private property.
Okay.
If you look at the area behind the building, the paved area of that lot belongs to the city, the other half belongs to the art center. And if you implemented some kind of paid parking, that's something the art center could look at, is they don't utilize rarely ever their half of that lot. So like I think they're about to hire an executive director, and they have volunteers. Like all those folks can park back there and free up spaces out front. They can do this kind of thing.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, that might relieve a lot of the anxieties they have about that if there's enough parking for them, and then also if some of them are going to be residents, they can just park together. I don't know how many of these spots are not city-only spots? How many of them are public spots inside? A lot of them, or almost none? Yeah, between the buildings.
We installed signage that right now says City Hall parking for some of the ones, and then we have some spaces that have signage for people that work here. But if you implement paid parking, we'd have to redo all that.
Rethink it.
And one thing I'll say, and Dean may fall out of his chair when I bring this up, but this is an idea, is, you know, part of the thing that we can consider is that, you know, the number of people that are employed here, that work here, all those folks would be accommodated by the rear parking that we have around the back of the building, and maybe a couple on the side, but mostly around the back. Is that, you know, one thing that I would be open to if the commission didn't have an issue with it is if you, to help address, you know, parking concerns, if you implemented some kind of paid parking around Cove Park, is that with the parking that we have for the employees right now, that, you know, that, so if you think about the lot behind the Art Center, it's split in half, we own this side, and on the other side is that, you know, I could move those employees off, and we could do some kind of agreement with the Art Center, let them use that whole back lot for the Art Center, because, you know, most of their art classes, I don't know what the average size are, but they're not overly large. Occasionally they have overly large, but that might be part of the answer to their concerns, is that because we have enough parking to accommodate what we're doing, so we could do a little give with them to help them out. But
So then it's just the softballers that are
yeah,
crazy softballers.
Yep.
They will be very
In
nice.
trouble.
yeah. You know, another thing, like I mentioned earlier, the piece that Hope was talking about, of course, that might be something you could look at later. You could always, like the rec center at St. Pete Beach, where, you know, it is a little further off the beach, but they don't have paid parking there. You know, you could go the route of leaving Cove Park along for, you know, at least the initial period of time as you implement all the other, and we, you know, readdress it. But, you know, I wish I could put an easy idea on the table that would solve all the concerns about the complexity of Cove Park and the things around it, but there's just not an easy answer on that.
Well, I think maybe now is a good time to open it up for public comment.
So good.
Yep. So if anybody would like to make a comment about paid parking, bring it on.
Okay, hi, Kelly Watt, 431 Harbor Drive South. I had a couple comments from the discussion. So my first question is, why are we entertaining this to begin with? Is there a problem we're trying to solve? I know we're the only beach that doesn't require paid parking, but is that a problem? Right? Do we even need to do this? I mean, that's one of the great things about Indian Rocks Beach is we are a quaint little town, and I didn't hear a problem statement of what we're trying to resolve by requiring the paid parking. That's my first question. The second, will we have to hire more staff if we go to this paid parking to enforce it? Third, to Hope's point, I think you can set up signs that say limited parking without having required paid parking. Like in downtown St. Pete, it says, you know, 2-hour limit parking for this spot. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a paid requirement. You can just limit the parking for the business district. And I am really concerned about how this might affect the business district. Dunedin, when they went to paid parking downtown, they got hammered. They were fine during the tourist season because people come anyway, but during the off season when the locals wanted to come, the ones that didn't live here but were coming to downtown Dunedin, they really lost a lot of revenue and they ended up reversing their position. So I think the business district, it's really important to get their input, and I'm worried about what that might do to them, that if we have paid parking, it might impact their business, right? If it's 8 to 8, people may not come here and want to go to the restaurants if they're coming from Florida or wherever. And then my last point would be, I am concerned about the push into the neighborhood. I think that's going to happen. I live on Harbor Drive South, and on Harbor Drive, I think we'll see a push, and it's almost impossible to get through Harbor Drive now because there's so many construction going on. You have to, it's like a leapfrog going through there. So those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you.
21 Fort Beach Trail. So, about a decade or 15 years ago or so, I came in and said, you need to start charging for parking. The reason for it was Courtney Campbell Causeway started charging for parking, and we started getting what I affectionately call the cream of the crop. Anybody that wanted to park for free came to Indian Rocks Beach. We got the cream of the crop. So I welcome this big time, okay? The worst mistake the city ever made was letting people park on the beach accesses 3 days, period, overnight, without any monitoring at all. And you probably have a lot of places. We were here fighting against that. Y'all didn't listen to us. I hope you listen this time. But anyway, yes. And by the way, I think you should put meters there and charge them $4 an hour. And they can only put in 15 minutes at a time. And so you got to put in 4 quarters, and then you got to come back and put in another 4 quarters and come up. It sounds like a good idea to me. Thanks.
Thanks, Don.
Maria Ishmaki, 315 Lower Center Drive. I'm here to support the paid parking. I believe that's going to solve a lot of issues we have here in Indian Rocks Beach. We will still be welcoming everyone to our beautiful community. They can come and enjoy. We still think offer a lot of amenities here in our town that other cities don't offer. For example, we are pickables. We go to other cities, we go to rec centers or other cities, we pay to play, and we pay to park. And I think it's time for Indian Rocks Beach to just enforce the paid parking. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Could you tell me your name again?
Maria Ishmael.
Age before beauty.
Oh,
Jesus,
thank you.
really?
Rude.
As it comes to RB Johnson, 1206 Beach Trail. You guys have really thrashed out a lot of the issues, so let me just mention a couple of things from my long-time experience here. The beach parking. Since time immemorial, we've had free parking on the beach accesses, which I've been happy with as far as having people come from across the bridge and being able to utilize our beaches for free. But I don't really have any problem at this point of putting in parking that's paid there. But let me just mention that later at night, it used to be for all that time when we had free parking, there was a limit at 11 o'clock. That was the end point. And let me just say that when that stopped 2 or 3 years ago, I don't know how long it's been, maybe not that long, but when we changed that so that people could come at any time, day or night, it got a lot louder out there on the beach. And I live right on the beach, and I've lived there for over 30 years, so I have intimate knowledge about how noisy it gets out there. And I don't think it's the people who live here necessarily, it's people who are coming to the access, and there they are, they're parking, they go out there, and especially if it's a weekend, they're not necessarily quiet and just sitting there, admiring the moonlight on the water. They're out there enjoying themselves in other ways, and oftentimes it's with music, yelling, and now everybody has a flashlight on their phone, and the lights are in our windows. So whatever you all do, I just think that there's a good reason for having a limitation after 11 p.m. or 12 o'clock at night, to limit the people who are out there on the beach driving from elsewhere, because we always had that in the past when we were very generous with the free parking right up to that point. The other issue I'll mention is the business district, and I think that that's sort of a complicated issue because the problem has developed over the last 10 years or so mostly, that the folks who come down there and take up all those spaces are going to the beach now, or they're coming from the condo over there at the Holiday Inn using that as overflow parking. And when those parking spaces were put in 30 odd years ago, the purpose was to have parking for the businesses and the restaurants. And then when the museum was moved there, for the museum. And also people who sometimes go across the street to the post office, for instance, around the parking at Chicopee Park. So the problem is those parking spaces being overutilized mainly by folks who are not going to the restaurants and business, beach people, condo people, or whatnot. So it's a time issue. And as we pointed out, if there's some limitation on the time, that would free up those parking spaces for the restaurant users or the business users. People going to the museum, now you have paid parking, you have to pay to go to the museum. I'm not sure if that's such a good idea, or if you're just volunteering to set up for one of the events down there. Now I've got to pay parking for that. So you need to think these things through, because it's the time issue that's the issue down there. And as like it was pointed out, there's places like downtown St. Pete where you can park for free, but only for 2 hours, or at least there used to be. I'm not sure if there's still, there used to be that way. So there's different ways to skin that cat, but I just think you need to keep all those issues in mind. Just
We will.
devil's in the details.
Thank you, Arby.
Appreciate it.
Beth McCollum, 481 Harbor Drive South. Just wanted to, there's gonna be paid parking in front of Nectons, Groupers, Krabby Bills.
No.
That's all private property.
Huh?
That's all private property.
Okay.
What I want to add, where the restaurants are, where Groupers are, the cafe has hired a tow truck company when people come and park, get their belongings and go down to the beach to have the vehicles removed, because they want people to come and go to those businesses like Groupers, the cafe, barber shop, whatever the case is. So they do have something going on over there right now. It just started probably a couple of weeks ago. Go ahead, Scott.
Okay. Somebody said, what problem are we trying to solve? And I agree. I don't see a problem. 23 years, I don't see a problem. I hear discussions about $4, $8, $12. Do I hear $20 an hour? Can we charge 30? Sure, we can charge it, yeah. But why? What's minimum wage? $12 an hour? There's people out there that there's very few things in life that they can afford to do, and going to the beach might be one of them. And we're going to try and take that away from them? I just don't understand. Do we need the money? Do we need the money? No, we don't. Because there's been a huge amount of tax revenues coming into the city because there's less homesteaded property. Everybody's property taxes have gone up. What are we doing with it? If it's earmarked towards something special, then maybe. But until you guys earmark it and come up with something, a project, like let's say, for example, we can land something, we can send something up to Mars and we can remote control it, but we still can't figure out how to keep storm drain from backflowing into the streets. I don't get it. You guys want to work on that? Save our residents money, help protect the houses and the infrastructure here with this money? Great. We don't need the money. Do we want to do this just to increase our administrative staff? I hope not. I don't understand it, but I can guarantee that this will create some entrepreneurship in our city. You think Airbnbs are an issue? I see these kids with golf carts offering free rides to the beach, you know, go park on Harbor Drive North and South and the end of 20th. I'll encourage it. Heck, use my golf cart, you know, and shuttle people back and forth. This makes no sense. I don't understand. Are we trying to keep people out of Indian Rocks Beach? Or are we trying to be like Clearwater Beach? Are we trying to be like Madera Beach because they have paid parking that we need to be? What made this city so great is the fact that we don't have paid parking, that we have free parking, that we have beach accesses. It's part of the whole reason that we got grants, right? So I just don't understand where this we got to keep them out attitude is, or we need the money attitude, but what are we going to spend it on attitude? I mean, this just makes no sense. You guys are talking about we charge $10 or $20 without talking about why are we doing this? Does it really need to be done? Getting input from the city. Hey, how about a straw poll? How about putting it on the ballot and letting us vote on it? I know it's a weird idea, but let's just, you know, let us decide, you know? It's our city too. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments this evening?
Am I allowed to say something?
John Thayer, 1819 Bay Boulevard. To clarify the Little League thing, I've been playing since it started. They have about 80 people on the roster, probably 20 or 30 of them are snowbirds. They play one game a night, 10 people on a team, 2 umpires, so you don't have any more than 25 people there. The bylaws require that half of them live in Indian Rock, so you're talking about a dozen people. That's probably a non-issue. And if they don't live in Indian Rock, they should pay anyway. So, as far as the parking, I fought hard against the parking ban. We worried about 3 or 4 years ago, and we got that beat down. because we are a little town and we don't want to be like Bel Air Beach. I came back here 17 years ago when I retired, and the reason we settled in Indian Rocks Beach because it wasn't like all the rest of the beaches. So if we don't pay for parking or not, it doesn't really matter to me. I don't see it, again, like a couple other people said, I don't see an issue. I live on Bay Boulevard. The parking, the no parking signs that push back right to Bay Boulevard, please don't put them in front of my house on Bay Boulevard. Take this slow. I urge you to take this slow. I would say, first of all, we started off the meeting and said, do we need to be talking about parking at all? Then we jumped right to how much we're going to charge. Have we already decided on paid parking meters? It sounded like it. So it sounded like your workshop quickly got wrapped around the axle. I would say, leave it alone. We don't have an issue. Put up a few more no parking signs if it's an issue there, but please talk to the people you're putting them up before you slap in front of their house. What we got, 28 avenues in Indian Rocks, maybe 20 of those at best have beach parking. 5 of those might be unmarked spots, that are available. So we're looking at we're only talking about 100 spots here you can get parking from. Maybe 50 more in the parks. Do we need that money? You're going to lose half of that money to the people administrating it. Then you've got all the issues in enforcement. I'm on the beach a lot, morning, night, after dark. I can't think of the last time I was on the beach that I didn't see dogs on the beach. We can't even keep a dog off the beach, and you're going to try to administer all this just for a few parking spots. It's full, and when the 150 spots are gone, the people will go somewhere else or quit coming. We've already saturated the whole deal, so I urge you to take this slow. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Hi, Matt.
Hi there, Matthew Garfield, 211 Olympic Avenue. I'd go back to what a few other people have said, is start with the why. Why are we doing this? What do we hope to solve out of it? How are we going to go do it? And then what are we going to do with the money? Because if we're just going to put money into a coffer, say we earned all this money, it doesn't do much to the citizenry. And it also takes away the opportunity to bring the beach to working families in the community who rely on this access point when times are tough right now. So I think we're not in the state of a deficit in the city. Put a ton of tax dollars, I myself contribute a ton of tax dollars in the city. And I would like to see the community be shared with other people around, and not be so isolated to a handful of residents in this town who continue to criticize anyone who's not a resident, and make sure that anyone who's not a resident has no possibility of coming to town. So I again urge you all to start with the why. Why are we trying to fix something? Is there actually a problem? Because right now, I don't think we've solidified that yet. Okay.
Thank you.
Christine Bergman again. Right after COVID and we had the beach shut down, the beaches opened up again. All these people, everybody, we all flocked to the beach. And I remember walking and seeing all these families, right? These parents that were like, the kids can finally do something. And I was really touched that people had a beautiful place to go, to be at the beach, to have fun, to bring their kids. And I know it got a little overdone. Everybody was coming, and I think it freaked a lot of residents out. But I think there was an overreaction. That's when we started seeing more and more no parking signs. And I thought it was really this big move, like we have to keep people out. And it's heartbreaking to me, because I firmly believe that everyone deserves to enjoy nature and our beautiful beach, and to have fun and to be in the water. And it shouldn't be only people that have a lot of money. to be able to do that. And as we're adding more and more roadblocks to people being able to get to the beach, we're becoming more elitist, I'm afraid, and not being able to share our beauty with people. Yes, I don't like when it gets crowded either. You know, I think, oh, it's my beach, why is everybody here? But I really think we need to be able to share this amazing gift that we have, because we don't just own it. And people have limited incomes. There's seniors, there's people with families that having to pay $10, $20 to go to the beach means that they don't get to go. I am so proud that we are the last beach that has had public access and open to people to be able to enjoy our beach. So please reconsider what you're doing. Please consider at least having some places like some parks that have free parking, to have limited parking fees, so that everyone can continue to enjoy nature. It's not only ours. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
It's a safety issue.
Ira Shaki, 315 Lost Drive. Although we all love to have the visitors and having the guests and people and welcome everybody to share our beautiful beach with us, but there is a limitation for everything. Our beach is getting overcrowded, and the reason for that is because everything is free. There is a reason for all the neighbor city that have the paid parking, because they are controlling their city and the limit how many people they can enjoy the beaches. And our beaches right now is overcrowded. I definitely am for having the paid parking. I don't know if our city need that extra money, but definitely there is this one way to control and manage the city. We have to be able to manage our city, and this is just part of it, to show that we can manage our city. It's not that everybody can come and do whatever they want. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to comment? No? I'm closing the work session open comment section. Would anybody else like to make comments about our discussion tonight?
Can I just ask Greg, because this is one of the questions, is what the money, we talked about this whenever I brought this up, we were first talking about it, what the funds from these parking meters would be able to go towards, because we all know that there are issues on the beach that we haven't been able to really control. So from what I understand, the money from these parking meters would be able to help people stopping, putting tents on top of the dunes and sitting up there and camping up there all day when they're not supposed to be up there. I'm not going to confront people on the dunes. I might glare at them and maybe mumble something under my breath, but it's not my job to tell them to get off of the dunes. I mean, there's the dogs, there is the trash, there is the holes being dug. There's plenty of things that are going on out there that from what I understand, that this money could help us control that. So is that true?
It's a long question.
I know.
But I'll answer.
Thank you.
If the commission implemented paid parking, it would take a number of months, number one, to even do that. But at a later date, we would be able to give the commission a better projection of the revenue that paid parking based on whatever plan you came up with would generate. And that would all be resolved through the budget development process. So like the process we're going through right now, we have the 2 remaining budget hearings. That would be a decision the commission would make on how to allocate the money. I would like to address one thing if I could. Reference, a lot of references, a lot of things are dropped, kind of tossed around. You know, and I can only speak for the period of time I've been here. We're very frugal and conservative on how we spend the taxpayers' money. Number one, when you get your tax bill, when you get your trim notice, we get 11% of that number. People make the mistake of looking at their trim notice and think, I'm paying $5,000. My God, the city should be able to build more pickleball courts. We get 11% of the bill. One of the things I take pride in is that, number one, we still have no debt. And the second thing is, and it's all on the website, you can look at this year's budget document, you can look at the ones for the last few years that I've been involved in. We have fewer staff now than we had when I got here. So any twist of, you're gonna hire all these people and do all this bureaucratic stuff, I'm not down with that, and that's not what we do. But the issue that you brought up, because you and I had a conversation about it, is if the city went with the paid parking route, that's the ultimate decision of how that money would be spent would be based on approval from the commission and based on a recommendation that I would make. I'm obligated to present a budget that I would make based on conversations and input for the department head level to work for me. And the enhanced ability to do some additional cleanups of the beach, details of the cleaning of the areas around the shower towers, could all that be expanded or made better by the additional funds? Sure. But, I think Dean and his folks do a good job now, but, we can always do things better. So the money that would be generated by that'd be a conversation we'd have at a later date. But, to address the other parties very clearly, this item was put on the agenda because it was requested to be on the agenda some time back. We delayed it because of the resignation of commission members and the appointing of commissioners in the election to get a fully seated commission. This one was put back on. The information that you've been provided in the agenda packet is just, as much detail that we can provide y'all so y'all can begin the conversation. As your city manager, this is not on the agenda because I recommend you do it. We're just trying to give you the information. Like I said earlier, the intent is to at least get some ideas of what you're thinking or what you're interested in, and then there can be a whole lot more dialogue. And one other thing I'd like to address also, now that I'm on my soapbox, is that elected officials are elected to represent the citizens that voted them in office. So the very thought of that the citizens are not having their say because there's not some new committee is a fallacy. Because that's what y'all are elected to do. So that's what you did tonight. You took input. And moving forward, we'll go out and have one of these conversations at a future meeting date. Well, you have to have this conversation again, and by then you would have heard from more people. But that's just Facebook's spin, and it's not an accurate statement. So, but I just wanted to keep. It's not necessarily for me to respond to everything, but the very thought that the city somehow is going to do this to generate some pot of money that we can play with. We don't do business that way. We never have. As long as I'm here, we will not do that. So I just wanted to say.
I know that's true because he won't let me play with money either. Yeah. So, does anybody else have any other comment? Or I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn.
Before you seek that motion, I just want to make sure the manager and clerk feel they have sufficient clarity on the consensus that's been derived from the discussion.
Yes.
Thank you. Do I hear a motion?
You sure do. I make a motion to adjourn.
And I will second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.